They say that turning 23 would be rough, and yeah, it was. But being 23 was more than that. It was a crazy year for me, and I went through a lot, but also accomplished a lot of things. So in light of my birthday, I wanted to share the 5 things I learned turning 24.
24. It's crazy because I didn't think I would even get to 24. Like, I remember being 16 and being like, 18's the cutoff. Like, I'm done at 18. And then after 18, after I made it through that, I was like, okay, 21. 21's over. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, and then now I'm 24. That's crazy. That's so crazy to me. And I've been through a lot as a 24-year-old. You'd think like, what have you been through as a 24-year-old? A lot, all right? A lot. But this video is about the things I learned being 24 from being 23. So for everybody who's scared to turn like the pivotal moment of 23 to 24, or like just being in your like young 20s, this video is for you. Also, I wanted to do a birthday vlog. My plans for this year, I thought I wasn't gonna do anything, but I was like, you know what? Why wouldn't I do anything? I get to do this once a year. So this year, I am going to have dinner at this nice plant-based like Italian restaurant with my friends, and then on Saturday we are going to Solvang with my boyfriend's family and my brother to go wine tasting and to walk around because it'll be nice out there. And because I am God's favorite, no, I am not his favorite. I just want y'all to know I'm not his favorite, because the things that be happening to me is not favorite like behavior, but I feel like he's making up for it. So like him or the universe, whoever is in charge, they're making up for it, because we have been like, California has been having like non-stop like unprecedented weather up to this point. But then yesterday was the last day of like shitty weather, and today it is clear. It is so sunny, and it's gonna be so sunny, and I'm so excited. And tomorrow and Saturday as well. 23. What did we learn? 1. You can make it out on your own. That's like the biggest thing, because when I turned 23, I was still in college. I had like a different life plan for me, and then shit hit the fan last year, and here we are today. A nice apartment, a cool boyfriend, a cool dog, a cool ass career, my own car, and like literally paying for my own expenses, like everything. I am 100% self-sufficient, and I didn't think I would be here, because like when I turned 23, like I said, I was like right in the middle of my like final semester of college, and right after, the plan was to like, you know, stay at home, study for the MCAT, or like do the MCAT, apply for the MCAT, take a month-long break. That's not what happened at all. What happened was my parents kicked me out, so I ended up having to find a job really quick, finding an apartment really quick, or else I was gonna be homeless. Was able to make it. I was able to make it. Number 1, the lessons you learn, you can make it. Lesson number 2, is like,
few moments later.
second lesson I learned was that it's gonna be lonely. It's gonna be lonely. Like this whole like self journey, getting better for yourself, doing better for yourself, it gets so lonely. I remember like it was just me and Zazu, like when we first moved out. Like I had a couple of friends help me out, but then like over the year of like learning to like just figuring it out and just like being on my own like fully, it was like a really eye-opening experience. Like growing up is like a lonely experience, especially if like you don't have like a family support system like I didn't, and especially since like you're in like a time in your life where like everybody's just in different places. Like even if you have a ton of friends, I feel like you would be like you're all in such a different spot and place in your life that it can be so incredibly like lonely. I felt really lonely. I remember like thinking like that I couldn't relate to a lot of my friends, and I couldn't relate to a lot of the people in my life because like a lot of them were still kind of like living at home or like kind of figuring out their careers out or all these things, like doing all these things that like, you know, and they were able to go out every weekend, and those aren't bad things. It was just like a lonely thing for me. 23 was like a little tough in that sense, where like it was just like such a lonely experience. Like I had like these group of friends that I like was a part of, and then I just wasn't a part of them anymore. Like it just like there was a lot of things that went down. They weren't really like great friends anyway, but like it was hard because like they couldn't necessarily relate to like the things that I was going through. Like I had to worry about like rent, and I had to worry about bills, whereas like their biggest worries were like what this girl said, or like what this girl did, what this guy did. Like it was a very like alienating experience, just because like everybody was like in a different place in their life, and that doesn't mean like it's their fault or that like it's bad, but like I think like I wasn't prepared for how lonely it was. And like even like finding solutions, like, and I lived on my own, like I still live on my own, so like I didn't get a roommate, or I didn't get like a partner. I didn't have a partner at the time, so moving out and being on your own by yourself was like also another alienating experience, because like every time I would ask for help or solutions, like the two friends that I knew that lived on their own lived with their partners, and so like a lot of the stress and like stuff that I had to deal with, they were able to kind of delegate and share it with their partners, and I couldn't. Obviously that wasn't an option for me, and that was like really freaky. That was like not freaky, but that was like really stressful, I guess, for me, and to learn that like that really like the most person I could rely on, especially at the time, was myself. And I guess like it was really lonely. It was really lonely. Like that was like my 23 to 24 was a lonely time in my life, because it was such a big change in my life. Like I wasn't in school anymore. I had to go to work, and like my coworkers were cool, and like they're still cool. Like my new coworkers are cool, my boss is really cool, but it wasn't like I was hanging out. It wasn't like I was working with like a bunch of 20-year-olds either, you know. I didn't have like any of my friends that I did in like college, because like I went to Berkeley, so like they're all up there. I didn't have like my Palmdale friends as often, because like I moved to LA and my work was in LA. And then my work in LA, like my coworkers were like all adults. Like my first job, like they were all like in their like 30s, 40s, with like kids, 50s, with children and careers and jobs like that's, and husbands and wives, and that was like my like demographic. And so like I was like, it was hard to make new friends, and it was hard to keep the friends that I had already, because like again, like we were in such different spaces in our lives. And also like it was hard for me to find the time to like always like dedicate to going out and dedicate to like spending time with people, because I was like in such a survival mode for like a long, like at least half of like my 23, that I was like, I need to get this done, I need to do this, I have to do this, no one's watching Zazu, like I have to watch Zazu, like I can't do this because I'm watching Zazu, I can't do this because of Zazu, I can't do this because of me, like I have work tomorrow, like, you know, like things like this, you know. I just felt like I couldn't, like nobody else could relate to that. That's how I felt. And that's not necessarily true. I'm sure like a lot of my friends have their other worries, and I'm sure like a lot of my friends have their own like stresses, but they just weren't the same as mine. And like at the time I took that as like, I'm alone in this, and I really did feel alone, because like I remember asking for help and not getting it. So it was a lonely time. That's one thing. It is gonna be lonely, but it's fine. Like, even if it's lonely, like, you can do it. Like, it's not like you get lonely and then life sucks. Like, no, life keeps going on and you can still figure it out. Number 3 that I learned was knowing my worth. That was like a really huge thing that I learned. That was like the main, I should have put it as number 1, but like number 3 was that I learned my worth. Like, I really did. Like, I lost so many friends in the past year, and like a lot of people would be like, oh, it's because you got a boyfriend. But no, it's because I was hanging out with like shitty. Okay, 23 to 24, I have like a bunch of friends. Like I had a bunch of friends that were like different ages. They were like ranging from the age of like 21 to like 28 or 27. And like, that's a big range when you're in your 20s, because like when you're in your 20s, you are in different stages in your life and you're just kind of trying to figure it out. Like, you have some people who are like, I gotta get my career going, I gotta get this doing, I gotta get started. And then there are some people who are like, I'm cool, I have like time, you know, like I'm not really in a rush for anything. And then you have some people who are just like, I don't really care about like my future and I don't know where it's gonna end. I do things like day by day. Like, it doesn't matter, but that's like your range. And because of that range, like, you just learn like different things and you get to be with different people who have different values. And I think when you're 20, like, I feel like I've never really like changed my values, because I've always been like really like passionate and strong and hell-bent on like what I believed in. But like, when I turned 24, like the transition between being 23 and 24, I learned like my own value. And that's so cliche. Like, I'm not gonna be like, like, no, it is cliche, but like at some point it happens to you. And I don't necessarily know that it was like, oh, you're in your low mid 20s or whatever, or in your like early 20s and that happens. Like, I don't necessarily think that's the case, because like, I think it happens at some point. It just happened for me like between 23 to 24. I learned my worth that year. Like, this is an example. Okay, I learned to cut off like really toxic people, at least for the first half. Okay, and then second, I learned to cut off even more toxic people for the second half. So those are the main things. Okay, because like, at some point I decided I'd rather be lonely than like be with people that I just like didn't have the same values with anymore. And that was like a huge change, because because like, I am like notoriously known for being the person that gives like 10,000 chances and like never learns her lesson and is always like giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like, that's literally who I am and who I was for a long time. And like, a lot of people are like, will be like, oh, I love that about you, I really like that, but I hated it about myself. I really did. I didn't like it, because like, I would be taken advantage of all the time. I was constantly upset. I was constantly like trying to be like somebody I wasn't, because I wanted all these people in my lives. I didn't want to be lonely. But the thing is, like, it is a lonely thing. And like, when you grow up alone, you want to just like latch on to anybody who gives you attention. Like, I'm like psychoanalyzing myself here, but like, that's how I know I'm like that, because I didn't have like a supportive family growing up, and I didn't feel like I have a family. I've always wanted a family. I never, like, any person who comes into my life, bad or good, I'm like, I want you in my life, because like, I don't want to be like without a person. But like, the thing is, like, you have to learn to be that way. You have to learn to be okay with like being lonely and not having a family or a support system. It's like, in order to be able to like weed out the bad people in your life and keep the good ones, and even make even more good ones. So like, I, for the longest time, would hang out with this group of people that would make me feel bad every time I hang out with them. Like, these are people I have to be drunk to hang out with, because that they're like always drunk. So like, I had to be drunk to be like one of them. And that was really like, I didn't think at the time that it was bad. I knew that I was like starting to like be distant, and we had good memories. Like that's why like I genuinely cared and loved for them, but like they never rooted for me. Like honestly, that was it. Like they never rooted for me. They didn't care about the things that I was going through. They didn't care about me. They literally didn't. I was just like honestly, I've told Eddie this constantly, but like I was really just a body for them. Like whether I was just a body to replace a friend, I was just a body to use, like I don't know, but that's what I was, and I was okay with that. Like for the longest time I was okay with that, because like I got to go out every weekend. I had like friends to hang out with. I got to drink with people. Like I definitely didn't see my worth then. Like I thought that was all I was good for, and that I should be okay with it. But that's not true. Like that's not true. That's not a fair thing for you to ask of yourself. Like you need to ask yourself for better things, and I did. And it took a while. I mean, it took a while, but like officially they're like, those people are out of my lives. And I lost a really good friend in the process as well, like just because again, like we're just in different spots in our life. Like she is still okay with like hanging out with them, and that's fine. So like I can't tell her who to hang out with or who to be with, but we just had to go our separate ways because of that, because we were just in different points and who we were okay with allowing in our lives, you know. So that's one thing I really learned my worth. And the other thing, I actually learned my worth with dating too. I was like, I need to get out there, right? Like I was like, well, I don't need to get out there. At some point I was like, I don't need to be out there, but I was like, whatever, like I'm living on my own, like let's see where it goes, right? Like I was still like getting over like an ex situation, and I was like, I need to at least practice, right? I was already dating before I moved to LA, but I was like not taking it seriously, and I needed to take it seriously. And when I tell you I was brutal about like dating, I was brutal. Like I was brutal with like my standards, because I didn't want to make the same mistakes that I had before. Like I am very much like a head over heels kind of girl. So whenever I fall for someone or let somebody in my life, it's like all like rose glass, rose tinted. I can't see all the bad signs, like all that stuff. But when I was dating, in the process of dating, I made sure to be super, super strict, because I knew what I wanted and what I deserved. I deserve the simpiest, cutest, like intelligent man or woman in my life. I was just like, you know what? Like as like unrealistic it might have been, I would rather be lonely in that scenario too than settle for somebody that wasn't for me. And so that's what I did. Like I didn't settle. I was so brutal. Like if I just got even the weirdest feeling about somebody, done. I wouldn't even talk to them anymore. I was brutal. Down to like, you can judge me for this, but even down to like the emojis they would use. Like if it gave me the ick, done. If you gave me the ick, I wouldn't even give you a chance, like once. And the only person who just didn't give me an ick, who didn't make me feel like crap, who gave me like such a great time, and to this day is the most loving boyfriend, was Eddie. Like he from the very start had I keep a running checklist when I'm dating. I keep a running checklist, and like it's because like I'm so scared of being like, I know it's a trauma response, don't come at me, I already know. I wanted something serious, but I also wasn't like, oh my god, like I'm gonna like marry this person like off the bat. Like no, I was more like, who is worth like giving time to? Because like honestly, like I had so little time to give. Like, I really wanted to focus on my friendships. I really wanted to focus on my life, my career, Zazu, all of these things. And so, like, the person that I was gonna give time to like that had to be, like, worth it, in the sense that, like, I knew they weren't gonna hurt me. I knew they weren't gonna play me. I knew they weren't gonna play any games. I knew I didn't have to be somebody else to be with them. And so that's how I was with Eddie. Like, I was never apologetic about how I was, and neither was he. Like, I called him out for, like, if I had to call him out, and which is, it's really rare. I don't ever have to call him out. We have the same political ideas, which, by the way, guys, is very important. But yeah, we had the same ideas. We had the same values. He checked all the boxes, like, almost right away. And, like, even then, I was, like, careful. Like, even then, when I first met him, it was still very, like, I was still very distant. I was still very, like, careful about how I approached it. But, like, look at me now. It was worth, like, at least, like, that kind of love, the same love that I can give somebody. I was worth, like, returning that. And you know what? Saying that right now is very, like, hard, because I'm still unlearning, like, a lot of, like, trauma and a lot of, like, things that I've been conditioned to believe. But I am worth it. Like, I am worth, like, being treated right. I am worth, like, being loved. I am worth being supported. And those are things you learn. Like, you learn now because you're like, I don't realize that, like, you realize that you don't have to be constantly punished. Like, I think, like, I learned my worth because I realized, like, what the frick, these things still keep happening to me. And at some point, you have to take accountability for, like, the things that happen to you. And it's not necessarily your fault, but there are things you can do to keep it from happening again. And a big, huge for me was cutting people off and just being, like, really unapologetic about, like, keeping the wrong people out and the right people in. I don't see, like, somebody, like, being good for you. Cut it. Learn balance. Like, even though I was in survival mode, I learned how to balance, or I learned the importance of balance. Like, I'm still learning the, like, balancing, but, like, I think I got it down for the most part. But I learned that that's, like, so important, because, like, I was burnt out my entire life. Like, burned out. Like, I was always a straight A student. I was always, like, honor student, graduated with honors, blah 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 blah. Pandemic hit, and I was like I was less better at that, but I was still, like, mentally, like, and emotionally, like, I need to be, like, working. I've always worked, like, 2 jobs, worked, like, crazy hours. Like, I was always burnt out. Okay, I was always burnt out, and the more balance I had, the less I would get burnt out, and the more I can do the things that I love to do. I learned balance in everything. I learned balance in spending. I learned balance in, like, finding time for my work, and then finding time for my life, and then balance in friendships and my relationships, and balance in just everything. Balance in general, okay? Work, I was, like, either I was really into it or really I wasn't. Like, instead of having, and I would burn out quickly, and then I would be more useless. Like, instead of being, like, having, like, maintaining a homeostatic, like, level of effort in all of my things, I was constantly overexerting myself or underexerting myself. This wasn't good. Like, it wasn't good, because, like, I would constantly feel guilty if I didn't work enough, and then I would constantly feel burnt out if I worked too much. And so, like, I think the important thing that I learned is, and you're gonna learn, especially, like, if you're a recent grad like I was, you learn to balance life. Like, you learn to balance, like, work is just as important as play, and play is just as important as work, and things like that. Saving money is just as important as spending money. You know, like, you have to constantly find the balance. Like, it's not like you figure it out one go. But I learned to do that. I learned to be just like, okay, my 8 to 5, that's work. That's my only time for work. After that, I'm done. Like, after my work day is over, it's done. Before my work day is over, it hasn't started, which means I don't think about work. I don't do anything for work. I don't prepare for work outside of my work hours, in the sense that, like, obviously I get dressed and I get ready to go to work, but, like, I don't like think about my assignments. I don't think about the things I have to do. I don't do that. I do that for during work time. So that after those times, I can do anything else, like spend time with my boyfriend, spend time with Zazu, make sure that I like allotting times with my friends, like all these things. Balance is just as important. Like, I think as a culture, we really prioritize like the hustle culture, things where you put in 110% in everything you do. I just want to tell y'all, I've been doing that my entire life, and it's not good. Okay, you shouldn't be doing 110% all the time. Like, that's not fair, because then you increase your thresholds, and you think 110% isn't doing enough, and then suddenly you're doing 150, and suddenly you're doing 200, and suddenly you're burnt out and you want to like end it all because you are tired. Okay, that's what happens when you're like constantly putting 100% in everything you do. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to like be super passionate about things and to like really try and to work on the things that you need to do, but like balance is so important. Balancing your life is like really hard. Okay, like I don't want to say like I can be like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and like you can be like in it and you can like go through life and just be like, oh frick, it has been 5 months since I've done this. It has been 6 months since I've seen this person. Like, it just flies by so fast. But I think if you're constantly like, if you check yourself now and then, you'll be fine. But the point is finding the importance in that, because I don't think we think about it as a culture enough. Fifth lesson I learned: I am so lucky everything works out for me. If you know me, I have spread that freaking thing everywhere ever since I started saying it, and I really learned that I am so lucky and everything works out for me. Like, you can just be like, oh, you're one of those girlies, but like changing my mindset about how my life is and how my life seems, it has been such a huge change for me, because being like, not only like have I started looking things at a more like positive level, I've also started like expressing gratitude in ways that I've never expressed it before. So I am also just like so thankful in like certain things, and like the whole like mindset of I'm so lucky everything works out for me keeps me from being like so focused on the things that I've lost, more on like focusing on the things that I've gained and the things that I've learned and the things that I'm, you know, have. And those are like such a good thing to change. Like, I'm not saying I'm cured. I'm still depressed. I still have ADHD. I still have anxiety. I think this is all you need. You definitely still need therapy, but this has helped me. Like, the mantra of I'm so lucky everything works out for me has helped me just be more like knowledgeable and to stay kind. Like, in that sense, like, because I feel like I'm so lucky and that everything works out for me, I am less bitter than I probably would. My life is in such a good place right now because I'm so lucky everything works out for me. Like, how lucky am I that my boyfriend is the cutest, sweetest guy I've ever met? How lucky am I that I was able to find an apartment at less than market price right now and be able to afford it? How lucky am I that like I got a job in the industry that is so hard to get into? And how lucky am I that like my boss now like picked me, of all the people that probably applied for it, picked me to be a part of her team? How lucky am I that Zazu, as problematic as he can be, is just the way he is? How lucky am I that my boyfriend's parents are so loving and so kind? How lucky am I that my friends that are still my friends to this day have stayed my friends and value my friendship and my like life being with their lives? Like, how lucky am I? How lucky am I was able to get a car? How lucky am I was able to afford a car and the insurance? Like, how lucky am I? How lucky am I that my brother still loves me? How lucky am I? Like, all these things. How lucky am I? Because it could have gone so easily wrong. Like, that's another thing that I have learned turning like in this whole year, was that so easily it could have gone wrong, so easily it couldn't have worked out, but it did. And I need to be more grateful for that, and I need to recognize how lucky I am that it worked out for me. Done all these things, it could have gone wrong 1,000 ways, but it didn't, and I am here today. So like, I need you guys to understand how important this last lesson is, that you are so lucky and that everything will work out. the more you believe that, the more it actually will happen that way, because like you start realizing like, you know what, I can take this risk. I can take this risk because I'm so lucky everything works out for me. I can do this because I'm so lucky everything works out for me. I need to go for that job. I need to go for that apartment. Guys, my apartment that I live in right now, a beautiful studio in like the perfect location. It's close to everything. It's close to, it's a perfect location. Like the only reason like I'm moving out of that place is because it has no parking. And I hate looking for it, and I need a bigger space if I'm gonna move in with someone. But like $1,300 a month. I pay $1,300 a month plus like a $75 fee for utilities. My internet's paid off. Like all these things, right? I have a fridge. They allowed Zazu. Everything. It's a great apartment, and I didn't even tour it. I was so desperate at the time, and all the apartments that we were looking at the same price range were kind of like crap. They were in the middle of the worst neighborhoods. They were just bad. But this apartment, I didn't even get to look at it before I applied for it. I just said, I'm gonna apply for it. It looks really nice. There's a virtual tour. It looked amazing. Like, it was so good. They were asking for a lot, and I didn't think I would meet the requirements, but I went for it anyway, and look, I got it. And it was awesome. And it's still awesome. I am so lucky. Everything works out for me. These are 5 lessons I learned turning 20, like throughout my 23, now that I'm 24. I hope that I learn new lessons that aren't too painful. I'm praying for a more peaceful year. And yeah, like, this year has been great. I am so lucky that like my life is the way it is now. I am so lucky for the people that I have now. I'm so lucky for the blessings I have. Like, I am so grateful for everything I have now. Even though there are times where I feel sad, lonely, and I'm like, why the fuck did they do me that dirty? Like, I think about that too. I'm not perfect, but for the most part, my life is good. And I'm so happy to tell 23-year-old me that we made it. Like, we are fine. We are okay. We are healthy. We are safe. We are warm. We are loved. That's crazy. I never thought I'd get here. So if you're turning 23 or you're turning 24, get ready for the best time of your life, okay? Don't be like me, who was like, I hate my birthday. Like, that's how I am every year. But the thing is, this year was great. I learned a lot. I gained so much. So do you. Be true to you. Cut them ugly bitches out. They ain't good for you anyways. And you got it. You got it. You got this. You got this. Okay? 4-year-old me. I hope you have a great year. I hope that like you learn to overcome a lot of your trauma. I hope you heal a little bit more. I hope you make new friends that are good for you. And I hope you learn to love yourself even just a bit more, because you kind of hate yourself right now a little bit. So I hope you do better at that, because like, things are great. Life is great. I hope you get to move in with your boyfriend and that's successful. I hope you learn to find balance and you keep that balance. I hope you go to more places. I hope you value more things more than just statistics and money and numbers, because right now that's kind of stressing you out, and I hope you get past that. I hope you get over your body dysmorphia, because like, you're banging and you look great. I hope you get stronger in the next year. I hope you hit new PRs. I hope you get another competition in soon. I hope you get a raise at work. I just said to not value statistics or numbers, but I just mean like, I hope you put in the work and you get out the same thing that you put in, you know? I hope that you're happy. I hope that you learn that you have a family and that you have a support system and that life isn't that lonely. I hope you get closer to your friends. I hope that you're smarter in terms of money, but also smarter in terms of life. I hope you learn to trust a bit more. I hope that like in a year from now, you're still with Eddie and you still have the good friends that you have. That's my wish for you. So you better get it done. You better do what you need to do. Go to therapy, bitch. But anyways, I have to go to work now. I have a job. So, bye. Thanks for watching this video. Bye. Happy birthday to me.